Yes. So I would say, respectfully, I would say that's another assumption.
Okay, yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that, you see, what I'm trying to sort of bring to the table is that it is true the theist is coming with assumptions as well. There's no doubt about that. But I think that this point of intellectual superiority from the atheist, that actually we're being very analytical, very empirical, we're being very neutral in our assumptions, I think that's not actually fair or just or correct.
Sure.
I think that they are also coming with their assumptions, and two of them that I've said is that one, God, if God exists, would make his presence so undeniable that human beings would believe in him. That I think that is an assumption they come with. And the second one, which is I've said to you, that if God wanted to be worshipped, again, he would make it so apparent that there would be actually no free will, no choice in the matter. People just would be compelled to do so, right?
But do you think there is an onus on the supernatural to provide evidence for themselves?
Well, that depends now. And I'll tell you what it depends on. It depends upon the one who set the rules for the game, as it were. Let's say the game of life, the game of creation. I don't mean it as a game as in a pejorative sense. I'm just saying from our perspective, right? So it depends upon the creator choosing the rules that he has set for humankind. Now, if those rules are everyone will believe, then Allah addresses that in the Quran. Had we wished, everyone would have believed. But in other words, Allah is telling us that that's not what I wished. That is not the game. Those are not the rules of the game. And then Allah specifies the rules of the game. That I will give you signs from within yourselves and from the furthest horizons.
Okay. But you have to interpret those signs.
Of course you do. There's always a level of interpretation.
You wouldn't need to interpret it if the God was made himself.
Just as you would interpret science.
Yeah.
Even analytical and empirical science has a realm of interpretation, right? So as human beings, there's always going to be that we can't escape that, basically.
But that wouldn't be needed if the God showed himself.
But you see, but that's the point. You see, Hassan, the point is that saying the rules should be how I perceive them to be best.
Okay.
How I perceive them to be, as they should be. I think this is, respectfully, I would say this is a bit arrogant. Because what it's saying is that my perceptions as an individual are somehow absolute. They can't be wrong. They cannot be questioned. What I'm saying, well, I'm saying when you come with that stance, you see, there's an element of surety that it has to be this way, otherwise God doesn't exist. Is a sort of an insistence on something that in reality doesn't have to be that way.
No, what I'm just saying is if you want us to believe, then there needs to be much smaller room for doubt.
But if that belief is something that the rules of the game are that God wishes an individual to have overwhelming evidence from God's perspective, not from our perspective, yet still leave them enough free will to make that decision. To believe or not to believe. All right. Now, one of the things that I would say is that I think that the concept of belief is something actually intrinsic within our very psyche, our very nature. Fitra, I would say. And I would say there's some data to support that. You may disagree.
I would argue that.
You may disagree with that, but I would say that the study by, I think, Daniel Bennett,
I mean, there were some studies that people
in Oxford University.
Yeah, no, what that showed was that people tend to, especially in children, they tend to find that they look for an agency cause for
something higher than themselves.
So like when they see a rock on the beach, they're not going to think it was blown in.
Yes.
They're going to think somebody.
So cause and effect, basically.
Yeah, but they tend to put an agency.
Yes, behind
That's what it shows.
Yes. So, and of course, if you extrapolate the universe, extrapolate the greater existence, then the greater the cause for that, right? Now, the other thing that they somehow intrinsically seem to possess is this aspect of justice. So if you give one and a half year old a cookie, and you don't give it to the other one, that one in it cries. It sort of recognises that's wrong, right?
What you as well,
right?
So,
yeah, right.
So they have a sense of fairness. Yeah.
So we believe that there are some things that are intrinsic within the human fabric of existence, whether you say soul, the qalb, the spiritual heart, whatever it might be.
I mean, I wouldn't argue that there are things that are intrinsic.
Yeah.
In us. I wouldn't put that down to we've been our programming by a God.
I understand. No, we may disagree as to the cause of that, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, therefore, I think that atheism is something that is conditioned to the individual afterwards. But the natural predisposition actually is to accept this entity, this higher cause, this cause of everything. That's what I would argue. And I think the data seems to support that too. And so when a person says, often they say to me, proof, I would say actually the Quranic verse is actually quite compelling, that from within yourselves and from in the furthest horizons, if you actually sit and contemplate, that you will actually, I think personally, that you will at least arrive at a conclusion that there has to be some sort of necessary existence underpinning all existence.
We can also argue about that there's some fundamental essence
Yes.
of the universe.
Yes.
And I've explored that, and I didn't get anything beyond that.
Okay.
Certainly, you have to get from there to deism.
No, I understand that, but have you yourself arrived at that conclusion that there has to be something that has always existed?
Where I see it is probably something has always existed, something like matter and energy.
Like whatever that might be.
Like that, yeah.
So something has always existed.
Outside of time, something there.
Outside of time, space, whatever, right? Okay. So you see, I think our beliefs on that aspect are fairly aligned. Would you agree? Yeah. Obviously now the question arises as to the explanation of what that existence might be, yeah? Now obviously from your point of view, and please, I'm explaining what you believe, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. That existence of that necessary existence of energy, matter, whatever it might be, is something that doesn't require an explanation because it is in itself its own explanation. There's no explanation outside of it, right?
It's just
and that everything that has come into existence has proceeded from that existence. I know this. We have our Christian friends. Guys, if you don't mind, we've got cameras here. Please, yeah. Thank you.
I mean,
So,
you could say that, yeah.
so sorry, brother. Sorry.
Everything is. Obviously, if you're positing the first cause,
Just 1 second. Sheikh.
Are you ashamed of your mother?
Sheikh, can we just Jazakallah khair. Thank you. So, sorry, we got lost here. It can become a bit of a circus here.
So I'm always saying, we can both agree that there must be some sort of first cause.
Right. I mean, it's reasonable, right? Now, of course, the only way really for us to find out about this first cause would be obviously two ways. One is that at our disposal we have the scientific method, but a necessary existence by definition is outside of science because matter and energy always require an explanation. They're contingent. Well, let me ask you something then. If they are contingent, i.e. that they possess certain qualities and certain elements which are assembled in a particular way, and they could have been assembled different. Yeah, you understand my point? I think it's reasonable to assume that it requires an explanation. Now you might say, no, I'm happy for there not to be an explanation, but I would posit that that's more of a cop-out than a reasonable position.
I would postulate that you need to demonstrate that it is contingent in the first place, and not just go by assumptions, because we're talking about things that are outside of our universe. We only know.
Brothers, can I just ask you? Sorry, there's a bit noise. Sorry.
Yeah, we only know what's in our own time and space and what we can test. So you're talking outside of us. So what matter and energy is outside, you can't say it's contingent. It can only be a certain way. These are all things that you'd like to make sure.
So in reality, we agree upon that point as well then.
Okay.
That first cause is not contingent. not reliant on
agree on
anything,
that,
and it